Should the Patriots trade for a top wide receiver this offseason? We're going to break that down here on Patriots Today by Chat Sports. We know New England's going to have upwards of $140 million in cap space. We know they could possibly end up pulling a move in free agency or in the NFL draft. But what about actually trading away asset for an asset, player for a player, and go get a guy you automatically know can make a difference on your team? We're going to break this down here on Patriots Today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to Patriots Today to get all of your latest news and rumors on the team. Before I do hop into today's show, I just want to go on ahead and ask you guys a really simple favor, and that's just to subscribe. Obviously, we are trying to hit a milestone here, but it does start with you. Help us reach 20,000 subscribers on this channel. We do currently have 19,868 subscribers while I am making this video. So if you guys want to be a part of this beautiful community that we do have that basically talks about how unfortunate the Patriots season is this year, well, then go on ahead and give us a like down below. All right, I have a question for you guys here talking about our first top wide receiver that I think the Patriots should at least consider trading for, and that's going to be with the New York Jets. That's going to be Garrett Wilson. Wilson, obviously not too happy right now playing with Aaron Rodgers in New York. I understand that they are a rival, so trading for Garrett Wilson with the New York Jets could be a little bit of a tricky situation here, but the reason why I say this is because we do have NFL experts out there that are possibly hinting that New England could actually be a pretty good situation for Garrett Wilson, who is looking to be a top wide receiver. Reports are showing that Albert Breer said Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave could be potential options for the Patriots to pursue via a trade this offseason. Now, I'll talk about Chris Olave in the back half of the show, but I really want to hone in here on what Garrett Wilson would look like on New England. We've always seen Garrett Wilson dominate the Patriots when he doesn't have Christian Gonzalez on him throughout the last couple of years, but we know that Garrett Wilson has a very productive future ahead of him, so why not go on ahead and secure him now before another team comes in and swoops him up? When you're looking at a guy like Garrett Wilson, you're going to get a 6 foot, 180-pound receiver. He's had 90 receptions so far this year, about 13 yards away from 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns, and as long as his 42. The Patriots don't have anything close to an 1,000-yard receiver. So automatically, Garrett Wilson would improve your offense, and he would be a great wide receiver, one for Drake Maye. He's a very shifty wide receiver. He's got that lanky body, which provides that extra mobility. He does very well creating separation. And for New York, who just traded for Davante Adams, they may want to put all their eggs in Davante Adams' basket if Aaron Rodgers says so, since Adams is this guy. Garrett Wilson is obviously not happy playing in New York. You can see that from his post-game interviews. You can see that from his body language on the sideline. So you kind of want to, as quickly as possible, get Wilson an opportunity to play for New England while that opportunity lasts, because he is entering in his final year of his rookie contract. So New York could quickly re-extend him, could re-sign him, and keep him in New York. I don't know if he'd want that, but if they offered him a pretty good option, I don't see why. But I could see Garrett Wilson this offseason requesting a trade. And if they do, New England needs to be one of the highest bidders to do so. The only thing that New England possibly has to offer somebody like Garrett Wilson is that first pick in the NFL draft, or their top pick in the NFL draft, which could be number 1 or number 2 or number 3. We don't know how the end of the season is going to look. But since we already know what Wilson does, because we do play him every single year, we know he pretty much dominates year in and year out against the Patriots, once again, pending any defense by Christian Gonzalez. Garrett Wilson having 90 receptions so far this year, he has 6 touchdowns as well. I mean, the stats speak for themselves. Garrett Wilson is a hell of a wide receiver, and if he doesn't like playing for Aaron Rodgers, I could absolutely see him wanting to play with a quarterback like Drake Maye that he knows is going to absolutely sling it in his direction all the time, because he would be wide receiver 1. So my question for you guys is, should the Patriots trade for Wilson this offseason? Type T for trade, type P for pass. You just want to see what's out there in free agency. You want to get Travis Hunter and hope he becomes a wide receiver in the NFL. If there are several reasons for P for pass, let me know in the comment section. And if you do want Garrett Wilson on the Patriots, go on ahead and let me know by typing T for trade. Well, let's hear from Garrett Wilson ahead of these last few games here heading into the season. He said he's obviously not worried about it. I'm going to worry about these last 2 games and see what happens, man. I'm not going to speak on that. All of that's out of my control. I just got to play my part and try to win games for my organization. And I obviously honor that. That's player talk. That's Garrett Wilson, like, not making any more of a drama-filled situation that is already going on in New York. But there is no lying that Garrett Wilson is going to be costly. And I don't know if we have that many great players that we can go player for player for. So you're going to probably have to add a lot of draft capital to get a guy like Garrett Wilson. Like I said, they could possibly be looking for that first pick in the 2025 NFL draft. And while New England, necessarily doesn't need anybody with that first pick, you can always get better with that first pick. And what I mean by saying need is that we don't need a quarterback. That's typically what you want in that first 1 through 5 spot in the NFL draft. But there are also other talent out there that may not cost as much, and that could be somebody like Chris Olave. So we're going to break that down here on the back half of the show. What would it look like to bring Chris Olave to New England? Before we hop into that, let me tell you guys about our sponsor, which is Prize Picks, the #1 daily fantasy sports app in America. I play Prize Picks every single game day, and you guys should too. Number 1, it is super easy, but number 2, it's just a lot of fun. Obviously, when I'm not watching the Patriots, I'm not watching the Celtics, or, I am a Yankees fan. Unfortunately, I hate to break it to you, all you Boston fans, but when I'm not watching them play, I just want to watch sports, and when I make my Prize Picks, it makes that game a lot more interesting to me because I can see how well I know ball and how much money I can win. And right now, if you just pick between 2 to 6 players and just pick more or less on their projected stats, you can win up to 1,000 times your money. You guys can play in over 30 different states, including Cali, Georgia, Florida, and Texas. So if you guys want to go on ahead and get started right now, I highly suggest doing so by downloading the Prize Picks app, using promo code CLNS. That'll give you guys $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Download the Prize Picks app. Use promo code CLNS. That'll give you guys $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. Trade for Chris Olave. The wide receiver obviously has been dealing with a bit of an injury per concussions this last season with the New Orleans Saints. 32 receptions, 400 yards, 1 touchdown, and his long is right up there with Garrett Wilson's, about 40 yards so far this season. Chris Olave, he's been one of my favorites on my fantasy football team the last couple of years, but in all seriousness, another receiver that would pair perfectly with the type of skill set that Drake Maye does have. He's got a cannon for an arm. He just unfortunately doesn't have that go route type of receiver. I think that's what Chris Olave could be. Olave can be your kind of mix in between your go route and your quick slant guy. We know that he can be a big playmaker. He can be very explosive. He's also very good at yards after catch, which I think could be very useful for a struggling offense right now. And same thing with Garrett Wilson. He automatically becomes your top wide receiver, so you can obviously check that off on your things to do this offseason, which is a pretty lengthy list. So we'll see what Chris Olave has done so far, but he's only played 8 games this season. That's the only red flag I tend to have on Chris Olave, especially because the reason for that has been injuries to the head. He's been in and out of the team locker room because of concussions, and head injuries are definitely not fun to deal with, especially in the NFL. They take protocols very seriously, as they should. So if you do want to end up trading away assets for a guy like Olave, you want to make sure that he can produce for you night in and night out. And right now, because of those injuries, he hasn't been able to do so. But David Latham came in here and said, outside of maybe Demario Douglas, New England does not have a reliable option at wide receiver. Thanks, David. Please tell me something I don't know. While the team has the most projected cap space in the league next year and could easily pursue someone like Chris Godwin, they need more than one player to field a competent offense. On track to hold the first overall pick in the NFL draft, New England could trade their first-round pick to the quarterback-needy Saints. Oh, interesting. And the Saints could give Olave and their first-round pick. This will give New England multiple reliable pass catchers and allow them to select an offensive lineman with the Saints pick. So David's got a really good point here in terms of the Saints quarterback room is atrocious. They're trying to figure it out, so maybe a Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders would look good. But let's talk about New England here. This is just the wide receivers we have right now. Look at how much better you get and how much more trust you have in your wide receiver core, moving Pop Douglas to wide receiver 2 in the slot, still having Kendrick Bourne, Kayshon Boutte being a good go-route guy, and then you have Chris Olave. Or, if you think this looks sexier, Garrett Wilson as your wide receiver 1. Now you've really got an explosive, almost 1,000-yard receiver who was the offensive rookie of the year a few years ago, now plugged into your depth chart. Matt, automatically, this makes me really upset because I realize how bad our wide receiver room really is when I look at a guy like Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, and I'm like, wow, I do want you to pass more. I actually trust these guys more than what we've had in the past, which... no discredit to these wide receivers. They do try their best, but there's just a lot of bad things happening in New England right now that we need to fix. So I want to know which one you'd rather trade for, Garrett Wilson or Chris Olave. Obviously, Garrett Wilson is going to be my top choice here. I think he's just a better wide receiver. I think that also he doesn't have as many injuries as Chris Olave has had this last year. So I'm going to go with Garrett Wilson. I would type GW down below. But the reason why we have Patriots Today by Chat Sports is that I talk, you talk, and then we talk about it. So all you guys have to do is comment down below. As always, if anything happens with New England, I'll talk about it right here on Patriots Today by Chat Sports. All you guys have to do is subscribe.